Good evening and welcome back to Town Meeting Television's continuing coverage of Town Meeting 2025. Today we're speaking to two candidates for the Essex Select Board. We have Kendall Chamberlain with us. He is an incumbent, and we have Shannon Jackson, who is seeking to occupy Dawn Hill-Fleury's seat. And we're glad you're both here. They're unopposed, two different seats. Just remind me of the term of your seat. 2 or 3 years?
3 years.
3 years, and yours
3 years as well.
Both 3 years. Okay, great. So why don't we just start with opening statements, and if you don't mind, Shannon, we'll start with you. Tell us what you love about Essex and why you're running for Select Board.
Sure. Well, first off, Lauren, thank you so much for having us tonight. I'm really excited to be here, and this is a new stage for me. I've never run for political office. So I grew up in Essex my whole life. I went through the entire school district. I went from elementary school to middle school to high school, and then I left for college. And then I luckily found a way back to the community. I'm now back here raising 2 wonderful daughters. Good night, Aurora and Adelaide. With my wife, we live on Brigham Hill Road, and we're having a great time being back in the community I've always called home. I've always been proud of Essex for a variety of reasons, and I feel like right now, and the reason that I chose to run for Select Board right now is because I feel like the community is at a turning point. We've just come out of the separation situation, and we have the opportunity to really define ourselves. And I want to make sure that the values that the town had when I grew up, that it was very family friendly, that it was very safe, a wonderful place for people to grow up, a wonderful place for people to start a family, remains true as we make the decisions as a town as to how we're going to grow.
All right, thank you very much. Kendall Chamberlain, why are you running for re-election, and what do you love about Essex?
Well, first of all, I feel obligated to say that any views or anything that's expressed is definitely not the view of the board. It's my personal opinion. There you go, Andy. I've lived in Essex my entire life. I love the community. I love my neighbors especially. I saw an opportunity in 2022 to maybe step up and be part of the historic separation that took place, and I have thoroughly enjoyed my time on the board. We've made some significant strides towards being an independent community, and I'd like to continue that work.
Simple enough. Tell us about the budget, and do you support it? I imagine you worked on the budget itself, the town budget, which is $16.4 million, and just tell us, do you support it? Why should people support it? Or what kind of questions do you have about it?
Well, actually, it is common knowledge. I did not vote for the budget. I felt that there was an opportunity this year to really make some significant changes to the budget that would have affected things like sidewalk plowing and fund balance and capital, which is very important. So I did not support the budget. That being said, the budget that was crafted and was supported with the majority of the board is a good one. It was as close as it probably could have been. It's a very low increase compared to some of the communities that you're looking at. So make up your own mind when you vote for it.
So I read in the Essex Reporter that you had some concerns about priorities on sidewalk plowing and also the importance of long-term investments, capital investments. Is that part of your question? Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Yes. When it comes to the capital funding, I've always been under the impression since I voted for it years back that all the capital should be funded through the capital tax. And that is not the case. When I came on the board, a significant portion of the capital was being funded through direct transfers from the budget. And that's still taking place this year. We had an opportunity this year to remove all of those transfers out of the budget and increase the capital tax to a rate that would fund the capital completely, but we were concerned that possibly the voters might turn that down. I personally feel that the town of Essex are very intelligent folks. They have never disappointed me in voting, and that if you provide them all the facts and the transparency and the benefit that they'll get, they make the right decision.
Got it. Thank you very much. Shannon, tell us your view on the budget this year, if you're supporting it, questions that you have that have been raised.
Certainly. I went to a number of the Select Board meetings, and I appreciate all the work that the Select Board as well as the town staff put into making that budget. And as Kendall mentioned, I'm really pleased to see it as such a low increase. I don't think that was easy, and I really commend all the efforts that went in to do that. The one thing that I am concerned about, and a little bit about my background. I worked on the Senate Budget Committee as well as the Veterans Affairs Committee. I've managed and put together multi-million-dollar budgets in the past, so I understand a lot of what goes into making a budget. I also understand that the town had ample opportunity for public comments as well as input from the town about the budget. And I'm pretty disappointed that they're separating 1% of the budget with the human services portion of the budget, which is the portion of the budget that goes to some of the most vulnerable communities. They're pulling that out to have it as a separate vote. I know we'll get into the ballot initiatives later, but this seems integrally wrong to me, both on the budgeting process as well as on a moral standing point. In 1987, the town made this fund, this 1% of the budget, part of the entire budget. And when you vote for a budget, and when you craft a budget, people, as Kendall will say, have a lot of passions on both sides. They debate things. The public comment comes in and says what they want to do, and then they have the vehicle that comes and goes before the voters. We're now taking out one line item and voting on that as separate and putting a lot of jeopardy for crucial organizations that really depend on that funding. So I hope that this is a one-time thing, and when I am on the select board, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, I will do everything I can to make sure that we are voting on the budget as a whole and not nitpicking individual things for the betterment of our community.
So you're referring to Article 2. Shall the town of Essex vote to appropriate an amount equal to 1% of the general fund budget as passed by voters to the Essex Human Services Contributions Fund to support social service organizations, such amount being reasonably necessary for the support of programs to benefit the town of Essex residents?
Correct. So we're basically voting on 99% of the budget under one amendment and then 1% of the budget under another.
So, Kendall, tell us, what's your view on this Article 2 and the rationale behind it?
Well, unfortunately, I have to take ownership as that I was one of the instigators to have that separated out from the budget, primarily because the legislature made a different ruling on the ability of select boards to determine where taxpayer funds will go. And it is a very good thing. My wife has beat me over the head a number of times about doing that, but there are certain organizations like that might not serve the residents of Essex completely, or there might be residents in Essex that don't feel that that particular organization should get the money. So the idea of bringing that out as an individual item to vote on is that it gives the folks a chance to determine whether they want their tax money to go towards that. Ideally, that would have been split up a little bit more. Some communities are actually listing the organizations that they would give that money to through the taxpayers. I think that's the way to go, personally.
By naming the organizations and having the voters vote as opposed to the representatives they voted for.
Exactly. As an example, Aunt Doss, I would give them the entire 1%. They benefit Essex hugely. They're in Essex. They serve primarily Essex residents. There are other organizations that would have a hard time to say that and are probably not as transparent about how many Essex residents they actually help and serve. So, and in these days of tighter and tighter budgets, you need to really pay attention where every dollar's going, especially to benefit the most vulnerable in your community.
Okay. Did you have anything to follow up on that?
I look forward to working on this with you, Kendall, because I think that I agree that the budget for Essex should be spent on Essex organizations, and I think there's room to find a common ground on this.
Yeah. I just want to remind viewers that we're speaking with two candidates for Select Board. The 3-year terms, there are 2 candidates, 2 seats, Kendall Chamberlain and Shannon Jackson. And so we're looking at the town articles. Article 3 has to do with increasing the capital reserve fund by adding 2 cents to the tax rate. So Kendall, tell us, do you support this article?
I support that article, but ideally it would have been at least 2.2 cents or preferably 2.5 cents to get us to our fully funded capital that we need. If you look at the meetings that we've had, I've been very vocal about how we need to fund our capital for long-term stability, and we're not quite there yet. And I am slightly disappointed in the staff that they're willing to say that we will find the money somehow to make up the balance that we're missing, when really you should be going to the taxpayers and telling them you voted for a capital tax, capital saves you about every dollar for dollar that you spend, you should fully fund it. So I support 2 cents. That's going to get us there. Since I've been on the board, we've actually, if this passes, we'll have increased it by 3 cents, but we're still short.
Got it. Thank you. What's your view, Shannon, on Article 3?
I agree with what he's saying in theory. When I looked at this amendment, and I think that anyone who's voting on these and going to the ballot box on 2 weeks from now, on Tuesday the 4th, should know what they're voting on, because there's a lot of intricacies in all of these amendments. And the town website, as well as the town offices, has informational sheets you can get to learn about them. Getting back to the question at hand, the town of Essex is going through a complete reappraisal. We're about to, I mean, my house was reappraised. I'm expecting that my taxes will go up, and therefore the town is going to get more money. That reappraisal will end in FY26, and at that point, I feel like we should circle back and possibly do something like this, but when we know what the landscape is. We're about to embark on a future where a lot of homes are going to be reappraised at a much higher amount, and therefore taxed on a higher amount, and therefore the town is going to have a lot more money to deal with. At the same point, if this year we are to raise this tax from 3 cents to 5 cents, 2 more cents on every dollar that you are taxed on, it's going to also increase that pool. And I feel like, especially right now when people in the community are stretched very thin, we're trying to solve one problem with 2 solutions at the same time. And I feel like this is something that, in my opinion, should be delayed, and putting this on the ballot right now is a little bit premature.
So one of the things you said in the interview in the Essex Reporter and in your materials is that, and in your opening statement, is you're concerned about the future of Essex, that it remain a family-friendly place.
Mm-hmm.
So what concerns you about the direction of Essex and why it may not be a family-friendly place?
So I think it is a family-friendly place. And when I say family-friendly, that's more of the value I think we're trying to uphold. When I look at where Essex is and this turning point we're at, where we can, the Upper Main Street project is a great example. We have the opportunity to really design our downtown and what that's going to be. I view Essex kind of being at a position where Burlington was at one point, back when we were fighting for the waterfront, and it could be the People's Waterfront, or it could be a much different waterfront with high rises and the developers winning that property. I don't know what battles Essex faces, but I feel like we should keep those values of wanting to benefit the most and make sure that the people's Essex is what is created, not one that we're focusing mostly on the developer side of the arguments.
And can you tell us a little bit about the Upper Main Street project and your view of that project? And this has to do with this 5-year plan question, I think, too, but I don't know a lot about the Upper Main Street project.
Well, the town got ARPA money, and excuse me, that was one of the most important values that was put out from the survey they did, was that they wanted town offices. New fire department, new library department. Some of our public works buildings have taken some hard time, and we need to upgrade some of them. So the opportunity came up to purchase that property in the town. Land never goes down in value. You always have the opportunity in the future to sell it or use it for something else. But I do feel strongly, as a Town of Essex resident, that the municipal offices should be in the Town of Essex. And right now they're not. 81 Main can be repurposed or sold, held for rental property. There's a lot of opportunities for income there. And going forward, the board will be looking hard to see how that will progress ahead. But I think it's a good thing.
And then just to segue to the 5-year plan, so I see it's actually a 5-year capital plan.
Yes.
And you've mentioned the importance of capital investment, and there's this ballot question to up capital investments. What's in that plan, and what do people need to know about it, and do you support it?
The capital plan is very detailed. Each department has to put forth a plan for the next 5 to 10 years of equipment that's going to be replaced, and a schedule to replace that. Essex has been pushing off some of their required replacements. An example would be a plow truck. Most of your new plow trucks go out of warranty at about 8 years, I believe. Once they go out of warranty, any little thing that goes wrong with them can be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you look at the budget, you'll see that the town currently spends a great deal on maintenance and upkeep of these trucks that are beyond their lifespan. So we've worked hard on the new capital plan, trying to get some of those replacement schedules back into a good time frame. It also has a lot of information with the fire department and the building maintenance and all that stuff. So I have to make a note that I did not vote for the capital plan because there were a couple things in there that I thought could really have been improved, and some of the equipment that is looking to be upgraded and everything might be just that we've always done it and we should just always do it, whereas I tend to look at it, let's look at everything with a fresh pair of eyes.
Got it. Thank you so much. Shannon, your view of the 5-year capital plan? Anything voters should know?
Yeah, diving into that plan, it's really exciting to see what's going to happen in your neighborhood, what roads are going to be repaved, what culverts that are having problems are going to be fixed. One of the things that I really enjoyed diving into was looking at the trails expansion. I sit presently, I'm the vice chair of the Conservation and Trails Committee. I've been there for almost 4 years now. And we're really trying to make sure Essex is more connected and accessible. And one of those projects that's in the 5-year plan is to continue a sidewalk from basically where the McDonald's is right now down to the Family Fun Center, and then doing a scoping study from the Family Fun Center down to where the sidewalk ends in Essex Junction. So it will connect a neighboring community with ours. And that's a huge corridor that's used. I see people walking, I see biking. When I was in high school, I was running cross country there, and when we looped up through Lost Nation and then came down Route 15, it was, you're praying while you're running that you're not going to get hit by a semi. And you have 25 to 30 students running single file on the edge of the road. It's screaming since 2007 when I graduated that we need a sidewalk in this area. So that's something, the scoping study is a great first step in getting that to be a reality. And one thing I talk about a lot when I've been going to the doors and meeting with people is the fact that we have so many networks and neighborhoods in our community that are kind of bisected right now by the circ. And we could connect these existing trail networks and these starts to sidewalk projects that then it was either done by a private developer that they did it on their property, but it doesn't continue on to make those connections. The 5-year plan actually highlights a couple of those and connects them. And I think it's a great step to continuing the improvements in our town.
Are you satisfied with the steps that the town has taken to build relationships with developers, et cetera, to assure affordable housing in the community?
I respect a lot of their moves. Part of the responsibilities of the Conservation and Trails Committee is that development projects come to us and we get to put our input, and then our role as a committee is to advise or send suggestions to the select board. So a number of these have come up, and I've really appreciated the input they asked from volunteers in this committee. And then the select board has done a great job of making sure that we are working to have affordable housing. And especially with the Upper Main Street project, a large phase of it is to have dense, walkable community or affordable housing, which I'm very excited to hopefully see become a reality.
Same question. Yeah, the affordable housing is really more in the purview of the planning and the development review board when it comes to looking at that. I do think that there are opportunities for it, certainly with the new Upper Main Street project. I would just note that a lot of the developers and the planning for the trails and such like that is very disconnected, and especially is very disconnected in the winter because the town doesn't maintain a lot of those trails and sidewalks in the wintertime. And that is one of my personal goals to accomplish on the board, is to get more of that maintained.
So what do you think the impacts of climate change are going to be on Essex, and do you think the town's preparing adequately?
Well, I think that it has always been humans' greatest ability is to be adaptable, and I don't see anything that we can do at this point to stop climate change. So I think that our purview should be adapting to climate change and making decisions on the board level that help Essex towards that in any way possible.
So are there major infrastructure projects, sewer projects, water projects, modifications in terms of adaptation that the town needs to be considering?
Yes, and I'll actually give a plug for our energy committee. They mentioned that they might consider geothermal as a way to heat the new complex, and I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, that was kind of like Iceland.
Yep.
I didn't know we had geothermal.
Yep.
How does that work? Is there
You get all the heat
water
and the cooling from the ground.
from the ground?
Yeah. It's
Best
an
shower ever.
investment up front, but once you have it, it's forever.
Exactly. The best shower I ever took was in Iceland. because I knew it would never run out of hot water, that I could stay there the entire time.
So I'll give credit to Will Dodge for that.
Well, exactly. Well, Shannon, your view of how the community is preparing itself and adapting.
So just a little bit about my background. I went to school for environmental science and policy. I work for a renewable energy company. So I really believe that while it might be viewed in a lens of adapting to make sure we can, not harm the earth further, that's something we need to do as a community. And I'm excited about, these development projects where we can talk about geothermal because, geothermal, the earth stays at a central, a common temperature. So if you get the water, it helps with cooling, it helps with heating. You run the water through the pipes in the ground and it comes back in and helps you have a base to, much less heat and cooling is needed at that point. I'm also excited, I know there's a proposal, I'm not sure what stage it's at right now, but on the Unsworth property, which is a large 42-acre parcel that was given to the town a number of years ago, pretty close to where the Upper Main Street project would be, there's a proposal for a large solar field that could then also help with the energy needs, not just of the town complex, but of all of our electrical usage for the town offices and the town portfolio of buildings in the town. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. It's something that I am very passionate about. It's something that I personally have solar panels in my house, and I think I'm doing my part to make sure that we are leaving the world in a better place than it is presently.
So the school budget is the biggest cost for a taxpayer in the community in terms of the property taxes that we pay. These municipal taxes that we're talking about are significant, but clearly the school part of the taxes are the highest. So what's your thought on the proposed funding levels for the school district and how that interplays with your leadership role on the select board?
So I'm the product of the Essex Westford School District. I went to all the schools and I really appreciated that our town not only puts its money where its mouth is, but also leads, by example and says, we are going to value education, we're going to invest in education. And last year when the school budget didn't pass, the second vote, you had so many people coming out to advocate for it. I give a lot of credit to Rob Carpenter, who's the president of our school board, that he has worked, again, with the budget team this year to have a level funded budget for this year. So there's no increase. He's looking for creative solutions, whether that is to welcome the Westford 6th to 8th graders to come to the middle school, or it's slightly increasing class sizes from 17 to 19 on average, or other things like that, without having to cut into the staples of our education and the extracurriculars that so many people, from music to art, different things that we need. Essex is a community that's sought after as a vibrant, wonderful place to raise children, go to school, and from there we have so many examples of people that have been able to succeed because of the quality education they got. I would hope that obviously the election, the voting time for the budget is a month later. It's not on the ballot with us. And also the select board has really no say into what happens with the school budget. But a major reason my wife and I chose to come back to Essex is because Essex schools always rank in the top 5. I personally think it's always the top 1 in the state. And I think we need to make sure that continues to be a value we uphold.
Thank you so much. What's your view of this interaction of the school budget with the municipal leadership and your concerns about it?
Well, one thing I know as a select board member is that that is not in my purview, so I know better than to get all flippergibbet about that sticky wicket. That being said, I do have an opinion on one thing that does involve the town when it comes to the school budget, and I have voiced this in the meeting, is that I think that the school budget is voted separately, that I think the school tax bill should be separate from the town tax bill. I'll use my own tax bill as an example. I pay $6,000 in taxes, $1,500 of it is a town tax. And if you look at how much you actually spend for all the town services that you get, that's a really good deal. And it's very efficient generally. And as a taxpayer, you can make a difference in the town tax that you pay. The school budget is a lot more convoluted. Those folks have a very difficult row to hoe, and I think that if they had their own bill tied with their own budget, that it would take away a lot of that conflict that comes in, where folks don't really pay maybe a lot of attention to the school budget or pay a lot of attention to town budget or one or the other, but they all look at it as one tax bill. So that's my opinion.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I'm just thinking efficiently from the town clerk's standpoint, sending out 2 tax bills.
Well, that was the one concern that was brought up, and it is a valid one. It's a little more expensive to send out the 2 separate bills, but I would put forth that we send out separate water and sewer bills, we send out separate town tax bills, we send out a lot of different bills, and that once you separated that, I think that it would clear up a lot of the confusion.
Got it. Well, there's all different ways to educate the voters, including this forum. And since we're running out of time, I want to ask you, Kendall, to make some closing comments.
I would just say that I have totally enjoyed my time on the board. I'm sure that both the town staff and my fellow members regard me as a thorn in their side most of the time, but that's perfectly fine. They're very professional about it, and I appreciate that. And I'm just looking forward to really delving into some of the issues that are going to be coming up in the town as we go forward. I think we've made some big strides towards being an independent community. I wish all the best to the City of Essex Junction, and we will be dealing with each other as we go forward with the town farm and some other issues that we have, and I look forward to that. So hopefully you will consider putting me in the hot seat again.
Thank you so much. Shannon Jackson, please, your closing statements.
I first off want to thank you, Lauren, for everything you do for CCTV as well as hosting these forums. I'm amazed how quickly this time has flown by, but I love getting into the issues. This was a wonderful way to educate the voters, and I encourage the voters, if they want to learn more about me, to please go to my website, shannonforessex.com. I've been door knocking every weekend. I'm having a bunch of, stopping by cafes and announcing when I'm there. I'd love to hear from the voters, both while I'm running to serve them, as well as afterwards. I'm looking forward to connecting with them and not only hearing the loudest voices in the community, but seeking out the opinions of everyone. I'm hopeful that on March 4th I will be chosen as one of your representatives on the select board. And if I am, I'm going to make sure that I really put an effort in to make sure that other voices are heard as well. So I just remind the voters, March 4th at the Essex Middle School, please vote.
Thank you for that reminder. And also, if people want to have hot chocolate, you're the guy to have it with, isn't that right?
That's true.
Got it. Hot chocolate with Shannon. I want to thank you both very much for joining us, Shannon Jackson and Kendall Chamberlain. Kendall is an incumbent with the Town of Essex Select Board, and Shannon is running for Don Hill Fleury's seat, but they are both unopposed, so you would be voting for each of them. And I want to remind folks about March 4th, which is town meeting day, and we will have complete coverage of election results from our region here at Town Meeting TV. So please stay tuned to continuing coverage of Town Meeting 2025. Thank you.